In this video, I'm going to show you the step-by-step method on how to cut and sew this beautiful crop top shirt and a fleece skirt. Watch till the end. It's Lena Fashion Hub. It's Lena Fashion Hub again. So I started off by folding my fabric into two for the front part, and I folded it into two again for the back part. Okay, so here I marked this hip depth, which I used 10 inches. So that is the extension for the back part. I added 1.5 inch extension for the zipper allowance. So I went ahead to mark the skirt length. I'm using 40 inches at the skirt length, then 1 inch extra inch folding allowance at the down part. So I went ahead to mark the waist divide by 4. All my measurements is starting from where the front skirt folding is. So my hip divide by 4 plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance, and at the hip I marked hip divide by 4 plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then after marking this, I use my curved ruler to connect the waistline to the hip line. Then I gave the hip a very gentle curve. At the hip line, I added 0.5 inch extra allowance for ease. This is quite optional because my client doesn't like very tight outfit. Okay, so at the hemline, I marked 20 inches at the hemline to bring out the flare shape of the outfit. Okay, then at my hemline, where my 41 inches is, I came up by 2 inches. These 2 inches is to avoid the edges from dropping. I don't know if you know what that means, right? Then I connected it back into my 41 inches line. Okay, so from the hip line, I use a straight rule to connect the hip line measurement to the hemline to form the flare shape that it has. Okay, so this is putting that 20 inches at the hemline is also optional, but you can, whatever your client's hip measurement is, you can add extra 10 inches to it. So at this point, I just went ahead to cut through the lines gently. So I'm cutting both the front and the back together. Remember that the extension at the back was for the zip allowance. Okay, so after cutting gently, after cutting through, at this point I realized I was just cutting the upper line without cutting the down line. Okay, so after cutting the skirt part, at this point I went ahead to cut the pocket for the front pocket. Okay, so I folded the pocket into two. So there's no rocket science, please. For the pocket measurement, you can, from your center front, you can come in by 3 inches, and from there your pocket starts. Then the depth of the pocket, I think I used 12 inches for the depth of the pocket. Okay, then at that edge, I just gave it a simple curve, nothing serious. You can leave your pocket to be straight, or you can as well give the curve. Then at that point, I just marked where is going to be my hip line. Okay, so if you notice, I cut two of these pockets. So one is going to be the pocket and one is going to be the pocket cover. Okay, then this point I'm going to cut the design by the side, like I'm going to cut the pocket facing. So I came in by 1.5 inch, then I went in again, the 1.5 inch sewing allowance, remember, then I went in again by 2 inches, then I came down by 6.5 inch. So I connect that 3.5 inch, so that makes it a total of 3.5 inch at the waistline. So I connected the 3.5 inch to the 6.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 pieces of that design, and I'm going to have 2 pieces of the pocket cover design. Okay, so I'm trying to make this video not to be too long. So this is the shirt part. So for the shirt part, I just went ahead, I'm going to mark the front shirt first. What I folded in is the allowance for the button area. I folded in 2 inches and I secured it with my pins. Okay, then I went ahead to measure the shirt length. So the shirt length, I'm going to use 21 inches. I marked 21.5 because I'm going to roll out 1/2 inch at the upper part. You are going to see when I did that. So the total length for this shirt is going to be 21 inches. Please feel free to use whatever preferred length your client wants you to use. Okay, so after marking the shirt length at 21 inches, I'm going to roll that line at the upper part, that 0.5 inch line at the upper part. So all my measurement is going to start from that 0.5 inch line. Okay, it's just what is going to guide me when I'm marking. So at this point, I just confirmed that my length is exactly 21 inches. So the 2 inches fold, the 2 inches that is on fold, we divide it into two and we mark 1 inch. So that 1 inch line, we divided into two. That 1 inch line is where all my measurement is going to start from. Okay, so my measurement is not starting from the unfold, the edge. It's starting from the 1 inch that I divided that 2 inches by. Okay, so I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and the shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus 0.5 inch, and I went ahead to mark my armhole depth. The calculation for armhole depth is bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. I think I'm correct. I'm going to write the right measurement on the screen. Okay, so after marking the armhole depth, I connected it with a straight line to form my armhole line. Okay, so on the armhole line, I went ahead to mark bust divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance, bust divided by 4 plus 1 inch for ease, and 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Okay, so I added 1 inch for ease because my client didn't want it to be very tight, and from the style there is ease in the shirt. Please, you would need to add ease. If you don't, it's going to be too tight and the bust area of your client might be revealing. Okay, there might be pressure at the button area. So at the waist part, I also did the same thing. Waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch for ease and 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So I connected the lines together. So the armhole, the shoulder slope for shirt is 1.5 inch. So after marking the shoulder slope, I went ahead to connect it like so. Okay, so go ahead to do everything that I did in this video and your shirt will come out exactly the way it should. So notice that the neck measurement, I used 2.5 inch for neck width and 3 inches for neck depth. Notice that I started from the edge. I didn't start from the 1 inch at the center to mark my neck width. Okay, so at this point I went ahead to connect my armhole measurement the way it should be. Okay, then I went in by 0.5 inch at the armhole. I just connected it, so I cut my shirt and the front shirt is ready. So after cutting through the armhole, I cut through the upper part. Okay, the armhole slope. So this is the back part. I just folded on fold and I put the front part on top of it. I marked an extension of 2 inches. Please watch what I'm doing. I mark an extension of 2 inches. So the back shirt is always higher than the front shirt by 2 inches. So at this point, I was just making sure that I laid everything exactly the way it should be. So there is no rocket science. Just lay it on top of each other and extend it from that shoulder line. I extended it up by 2 inches. Okay, so I went ahead to cut my front neckline. Then for the back neckline, please watch what I'm going to do. From the back neckline, I extended from the neck depth. I extended it up. Then from that same point, I extended the line. Please watch what I'm doing and I cut through. So here I'm bringing out the line again for you to see what I did, and that becomes the back neckline, and I will cut it out. Okay, so for the front, I'm going to iron 2 inches of a stay at that point. Then I'll use my iron and fold it in by half and fold it in by 1 inch. When I was done doing that, I came to show us how it looks like. So I used my A-stay, I ironed my cotton A-stay on it, then I folded in ½ inch, 0.5 inch in, then I folded it in again by 1 inch. Okay, so you have something that looks flat like this. So you roll a line, you sew at that point I pointed at. Okay, so after that, you join your your shoulder to shoulder, and you can go ahead to shape the side by your sewing allowance. So this is the marking of our sleeves. I first started by marking my sleeve cap. So the sleeve cap is your bust divide by 12 plus 0.5 inch, so that is your sleeves cap. So I folded by, this is on fold by 4, so I'm just going to cut the two sleeves at the same time. So after marking my sleeves cap, I went ahead to mark my round armhole measurement. That is the round armhole on my shirt. So I marked the round armhole on my shirt. Then I also added 1 inch sewing allowance. Then at my shirt length, I marked the round of the shirt length plus 1 inch for ease and the necessary sewing allowance, 1 inch sewing allowance, and I connected the lines together. Okay, so at the upper part, I divided that line I marked into 2. Then I rolled, I came down by 0.5 a little bit to the divide into 2 line. Then I also took it up 0.5. Okay, please, if you do not understand this, I'm going to make a more detailed tutorial on how to mark your sleeves, shirt sleeves. Okay, so after that, just go ahead and cut. There's nothing very serious about this. Just go ahead and cut. So if you watch the tutorial closely, you are going to understand every single thing that I did in the tutorial, and you'll be able to recreate your own outfits with ease. So after marking the armhole, after cutting the armhole, please go ahead and shape the armhole. Turn the down part by the necessary sewing allowance. So I'm going to show us how I turned the down part, because for the length I added 1 extra inch for the length. So I'm going to fold it in by 1/2 inch and fold it in again by 1/2 inch. Okay, so for the collar, I measured my round neck measurement. So the round neck is 19 inches. So divide by 2 is 9.5 inch. So the length of my collar stand, so this is the collar stand that I'm marking. The length of the collar stand, I use 1.5 inch. So I divided the 9.5 inch by 2 and then roll a straight line at that point. Okay, so the length of my collar stand is 1.5 inch. The width of my collar stand is 1.5 inch, and the length is the round neck on the sleeve. So I went up at the edge by 0.5 inch. Okay, then I went in by 0.5 inch. Okay, so just watch what I'm doing. So I connected the lines together. So I came up by 0.5 inch and I went in by 0.5 inch, if that makes sense. Okay, so after connecting the lines together like so, I just went ahead to connect that part so that they will match with each other, and we are done with the collar stand. So for the collar itself, I will just roll a straight line so that that line becomes my starting point. So the collar itself is going to be 2 inches for the width. So after marking the 2 inches, I also use the ruler to roll out the straight line to connect all the dots together. Okay, so after connecting the dots together, I'll mark the same thing, which is my round neck divide by 2, which is 9.5 inches. Okay, the same thing I did to the collar stand. Okay, so after marking the 9.5 inch, I'm going to form connect all these lines together to form a box shape, right, before I start marking the shape of the collar itself. Then for the shape of the collar itself, at the edge, at the 9.5 inch, I'm going to go in by 1 inches at the edge. I just went in by 1 inch at that point. Then I connected it to form the design of the collar. All right. So after connecting it together, I came in at that point by 0.5 inch, right? So that is the point that we are going to join with the collar stand. So I went in by 0.5 inch. This will help your collar to relax properly on the neck. Then I connected it with a gentle cuff like so. Then we'll go ahead and cut. So now we have our collar and our collar stand. So I'm going to iron my A-stay. I'm going to cut it. So that's the way the collar is going to be. I just position it to show us how it is going to, look like. So I went ahead to cut the collar stand, two pieces of it, right? So I added half inch all around. So fold it into two and notch the center. It's very important that you notch the center. Then for the collar, the edge is on fold, all right. So I added half inch on the two side and at the front, the part that I'm going to join to the collar stand. I also folded it into two and I notch the center part. So that notch is going to help us when we are going to join the collar and the collar stand together. I also iron cotton stay on every part of it so that when we are after sewing and ironing, it will look stable, right? So you can go ahead and iron a stay on your own. So I just position it to show us how it is going to look like. So I'm going to take out the paper from the way, right? So that point, you close that point with 0.5 inch. Close this part too with 0.5. So when I was done, that is what I had. I flip over and I ironed. All right, so it's time to join the collar stand. So I'm just bringing in the shape for you people to see what we had before now. So remember our notch. So that notch is going to help us match all of them together the way I'm going to show you. So we'll match it together by that notch, the center notch. Please remember to notch the center. It's going to help you from a lot of guesswork. So I'm going to match 3 of them together at the center line. So after matching 3 of them together, I just went ahead to secure it with my office pin, and I'm going to sew with my 0.5 inch from one edge to the other, right? The way I'm marking now, that is where I'm going to sew it. Close that part with 0.5 inch. So after closing that part with 0.5 inch, please pay attention to what I'm about to show you. I will come down at that point with 0.5 inch too, but I'm not going all the way down. I'll fold in 0.5 inch and I'll sew it just like so. Please go ahead to do the same thing, right? It's going to help you, fix your collar easily. So I'll do the same thing to the other side and I'll fold in 0.5 inch. I'll close it down, then I'll fold in that 0.5 inch at the other side, okay? So when I'm done, I'm going to flip over and iron. So remember the part that we folded in. The part that we folded in is the part that is up here. Now, the part we joined to the clothes is the part that we did not fold in. The part that we joined to the neckline is the part that we didn't fold in. So I went ahead to join that part 0.5 inch. After joining, please notch every single part of the neckline so that it will relax properly. Now, the part that we folded in while we were joining is where we are going to use to close up the neck, right? So that folding in is what helps it, to bring out this easy shape that you are going to just tuck in your sewing allowance and you top stitch. So after tucking in your sewing allowance, you top stitch. After top stitching, your collar is ready. So we went ahead to fix our armhole, our sleeve, right? Then we had turned the down part. This is the pocket design for the skirt part. The length of the pocket is 8 inches and the width is 4.25 on fold. So at the unfold part, I came in by 1.5 inch on both sides, okay, to bring out the shape. Then at the upper part, I came down by 1 inch. Right, I did the same to the other side, which I later still reduced, but follow what I'm doing, okay? And I connected the lines together. If you notice, the pocket had this shape by the side. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to bring out the shape. So after marking it, I went ahead to confirm that I had what I'm supposed to have there, which I still later reduced, okay, but I cut through it like so. So after cutting through it, I measured it on, even this is on fold and this is for one pocket. So you are going to have 2 of these. This is on fold and this is for one pocket, okay. So after marking and cutting it, I was trying to show us how we are going to sew it. I'm going to sew by 1/2 inch and by 1/2 inch, but please don't sew it yet. So after placing it on the skirt, I realized that it's too big, so I went in again by 0.75 inch. I reduced the length by 0.75 inch, okay, and I still went in by 0.75 inch on those corners. Each of those corners I went in again by 0.75 inch, and I connected it back to that same angle. You can watch what I'm doing. That is how I recreated that pocket design. So after cutting through, I cut through the other side as well. Remember, this is 2. You are going to do 2 of these. So I cut through those corners to form that design. Okay, so I confirmed the length is exactly what will fit this skirt, and that is what I ended up using. All right, so I turned every part of this. So after turning, I'm going to place it like so. I was just going to confirm that this is exactly the shape I wanted. Then I put the pocket facing. I'm going to sew it in at that point with 1/2 inch. I'm going to close there with 1/2 inch and sew 3 of them. So after closing with 1/2 inch, I'll bring in my pocket, right? So I'm going to face my pocket like so and close it too by 1/2 inch and flip it in like this, and the pocket will be ready. All right, so if you notice, I'm closing, one is the front part and one will be the back part. Just place it the same way. All right, then I'll sew it by 0.5 inch and I'll flip it over, and that is what I'm going to have. So when I was done with both pockets, this is what I had. Then I'm going to go ahead and top stitch that part I just pointed at. Okay, so this is what I had turned the design on the skirt pocket and I fixed it. So that part is what we cut out, that 3.5 inch. Remember that we cut out from the skirt when we are trying to cut the pocket. So I'm just measuring the 3.5 and I'm going to make sure that that part, that waistline part too, is giving me 3.5 inches. So when I placed it to be 3.5 inch, I went ahead to secure it with my pin. I also had to secure the hip region with my pin. Remember that we are working with Duchess fabric, and Duchess can be very slippery. So when you are working with this, try to have your pins handy. At this point, please, if you have watched to this very point, remember to give me a thumbs up. So this is the back part of the skirt. So the back part of the skirt, the part that looks flat, is the zipper area. So go ahead and close the zipper area. I close the zipper area with 1.5 inch zipper allowance. So that is me marking the 1.5 inch zipper allowance. So after closing it all the way down with your 1.5 inch zipper allowance, okay, you go ahead and match the side. Do the same to the other side. We added 1 inch side allowance. Yeah, I think we added 1 inch. So after closing it with the side, the down part, I left 1.5 to 2 inches at one side. So I'm using my paper to turn this because it's a curvy area. So I'm going to sew it in with 0.5 inch. Then after sewing it in with 0.5 inch, you will need lots of paper to do this. After sewing it, you will drag out your paper. All right, I think I have a live video where I showed how I turned the hem of a curvy, how I turn a curvy hem. Okay, so the hem line, after sewing with 0.5 inch, you flip it like so and top stitch again. After sewing with 0.5 inch, you flip it and top stitch again. Then you are going to, have a very smooth sewing. Then we'll go ahead and fix our waistband. So after fixing our waistband, this is the marking for the strap designs on the shirt. So I came up from the edge by 4 inches. After coming up from the edge by 4 inches, I went up by 2 inches. There are 3 lines. We have 3 lines of that design. So I came up by 2 inches to form the second line, and I went up again by 2 inches to form the third line. Please do the same thing to the other side of the shirt. Okay, so not to make the video too long, I just showed us how I did for one side of the shirt. So after doing this, you are going to use your hemming gum. So that is the strap I used. I bought 5 yards of this because we also have this at the skirt area as well. So I went in with my hemming gum. I put my uhu gum on it. Then I will gum it to the shirt. Please be very careful while you are doing this. I use white chalk so that it's easy to clean off, right? So please be very careful, and also pay attention to your choice of chalk when you are marking so that it doesn't leave stains on your shirt. If you have watched to this point, please give us a thumbs up, follow this, subscribe to this channel so that you can be seeing more of this type of tutorial. So I just extended the uhu gum to the edge, right, to have that smooth effect, right? So I'm still going to show us how I tacked. I use needle and thread to further secure this on the shirt, because only the gum, right, only the gum cannot hold it. So as I said, please subscribe and like this video. If you haven't subscribed till this point, please and please subscribe to this channel and like the video. Thank you very much. Okay, so I went ahead to gum the second line. Remember that you are doing this same thing for the 2 lines. I will advise you don't measure this rope and cut out before gumming, because the rope too as well, is also dancing. So please, you can, as you gum it on the clothes, after getting your preferred length, you can go ahead and cut it out. So I also started this line after the button area. So this line is not going into the button area. I started this line after the button area. So after gumming it smoothly like so, we are going to repeat the same thing to the other side of the shirt. Then you allow it to dry before you tack. Okay, so for the skirt part, so that part too at the skirt area also have the same thing, and I'm also going to add 1 single button the way you see me putting it there. So the same button that you use for your shirt, use the same button on the skirt area. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side of the skirt, and I'm going to also put this strap all the way till the down part. So I did that off camera. So I'm about to show us how I tacked the design. I really don't know how this is called, but this strap design, how I tagged it to the skirt. Please remember to tag it. I just added 3 tags to the pocket area. After tagging one, I'll just gently tie it and cut, because you are also going to avoid having a lot of thread behind your outfit. So please, you just tag it gently, tie it and cut, so you can be giving 2 inches space before you tag it. So you are going to do this to the rest, all the parts that you have this design, just to further secure it. If you really trust your gum, you can, you may leave it and not do it. So after doing this to the pocket area, I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the skirt part. The skirt part, I'm going to obviously do it off camera to avoid this video being too long, but I tagged it all the way down. I left, after tagging one, I'll leave like 2 inches to 3 inches. Then I'll give the second tag, to further secure it. I did the same thing to the shirt part. If you have watched till this very point, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If this tutorial was helpful, please leave me a comment in the comment section. If you have further questions about how we achieve this outfit, do not hesitate to ask. I will be in the comments to answer all your questions. Okay, so you can see how I tied it gently. Then for the upper part, I went ahead to mark the buttonhole point. So the first button will be at the collar stand, then I'll come down by 3.5 inch, but the rest will be 4 inches. This shirt is going to have only 4 buttons. Okay, so that will be the part for the buttonhole. Then the other part of it will be for the button itself. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.